Nitro is a large-scale B&M hypercoaster located at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. It's got this giant out-and-back layout through the woods. Just about every hill is designed to give you floater airtime, and so naturally, this is going to be a fan favorite among guests. In this video, I'm going to be giving my in-depth thoughts on the attraction so that you can know what to expect should you go and ride it. Now, what's cool for me is that this was only the second ever B&M hypercoaster I ever rode after Apollo's Chariot, which opened at my home park. And so as you can imagine, it was quite exciting for me to try out something else like this because I enjoy Apollo's Chariot, but it was the first ever B&M hypercoaster to open in March of 1999, and Nitro opened shortly thereafter in April of 2001. But in general, as manufacturers build more and more roller coasters, they tend to perfect their designs. Their layouts get better over time because they get in that groove. They really figure out how to make it work the best that it possibly can. So personally, a lot of my favorite B&M hypercoasters are some of the newer ones. Ever since I rode Shambhala at Port Aventura, I said that is the best B&M hyper I've ever ridden. It was exciting to ride Nitro the first time I ever did it, but I think since then, as I've gone on to do a lot of these other hypercoasters, Nitro's been one that I've been kind of about. Don't get me wrong, it has a lot of airtime, but in my opinion, a lot of the newer ones have much more powerful airtime. So what it really comes down to is quantity over quality. Would you rather have more airtime or better airtime? On Nitro, there's a couple of hills that are just kind of, I don't know, it's a hit or miss. On my last visit to the park, because I probably got 6 or 7 rides on it, I found that depending on where I sat really influenced how much air I got. The best ride I had on Nitro was in the back. Don't get me wrong, the front is good, but it's a classic case of would you rather get more air rising up into the hill or as you're cresting down over it. Nitro has a lot of these parabolic hills as you're flying through the woods, in addition to lots of different turns. Right after the first drop, you rise up into the start of a hill, but then you bank to the left, go into a hill, hammerhead to the right, go into a hill, then we turn to the left. You got a helix, which I'm going to talk about a little later, mid-course brake run, and then return trip into the end of the ride with lots of smaller hills. In my personal opinion, the best airtime hill on the ride is that third one, which is right after that hammerhead turn. For whatever reason, I feel like that was designed to give the most airtime. Typically, I'm a big fan of some of the smaller hills that you'd find at the end of the ride. With Nitros, I felt like there were a couple duds. In particular, the first hill after the mid-course, it doesn't take you all the way down to ground level. It's only a slight little dip. It leads into a much larger hill coming up. Out of those hills at the end of the ride, I personally like the last one the best. It takes you all the way down to the ground level before you rise up into that final brake run. So it's a really nice way to end out the ride, but I feel like with some of those other hypercoasters, every single element is an absolute win. I don't know if that is necessarily the case with Nitro. It has a lot of great moments, but I didn't feel like every single hill was a home run. Now, one of the best parts about Nitro isn't an airtime hill at all. It is this crazy upwards helix about halfway through the ride. You pull some pretty powerful G's there. You're making this right-hand bank all the way up into the mid-course brake run. Don't be surprised if you gray out. I know more times than not, I certainly do. So that's a great moment. Not every B&M hyper has a crazy helix, and I know we always talk about the one on Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, but Nitro's is definitely good. So just kind of taking a general look at the attraction, you know, in a lot of coaster reviews, I talk about theming and general appearance. For Nitro, there isn't really a lot to talk about because, frankly, the ride doesn't look that great. Presentation was clearly not a big factor when they were building this attraction because you can't see most of the ride from the park. It goes off into the woods, which is fine, but personally, as a film guy who enjoys getting cool shots of attractions, Nitro is one of the most frustrating rides to film simply because you can't get close to the dang thing. I do also think it could use a good repaint. The yellow with the pink and blue, I just don't like that color scheme at all. I mean, I know some people like it, but personally, I think it's one of my least favorite color schemes on any roller coaster anywhere. Parts of it are just looking faded, and I just don't like the yellow and the pink and blue. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that. Nitro also doesn't have a theme. If there is a theme, it's to whatever ads Six Flags has outside the ride entrance. It looks kind of industrial. I just think as you're walking up to this ride and you get into the station, none of it looks good. The only thing it's really got going for it is a really sweet soundtrack in the station. It's actually the theme from Mortal Kombat, but as someone who does not play Mortal Kombat, I always know it as, oh, it's Nitro station music. But even though it's not an original soundtrack or anything, it's a great way to get you all pumped up because you're sitting in that station station, about to dispatch, you hear it come on, just gets you in a good mood. You're like, yeah, we're about to ride this giant roller coaster. So overall, is Nitro a good ride? Oh yeah, definitely. No, it's not my favorite B&M hypercoaster or anything. It's probably mid to lower tier in my opinion. However, I certainly still enjoy it. It's very easy in a marathon, as with any coaster by B&M really. It's got some really fun moments, and you know, it's a great contrasting coaster up against El Toro, which is all just crazy ejector, absolute insanity airtime. This one's a bit more relaxing, so I could see how this could be a lot of people's favorite ride in the park. So for its final score, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's good fun. Again, it doesn't have the most powerful floater airtime, and I think the ride is pretty freaking ugly, but the actual ride experience I think makes up for it. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure? You can let me know down in the comments below if you've gotten the chance to experience it, and if you're new to the channel, I'd love if you could subscribe. We do coaster reviews from rides all across the world. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.